This is the On the Pony Express podcast, part of the On3 network. Check out all the SMU coverage you need at ontheponyexpress.com. Now, here's your host, Billy Embody.
1, 2, 3, let me go.
Well, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the After Stangs Show, live from Shook's Bagels in Mockingbird Plaza. I am Billy Embody. With me is Dean Rowski, our staff writer. First show for Dean. We're breaking him in with the 59-7 win for SMU over Houston Christian. But before we get to that, Dean, we are presented by our friends at Mosquito Shield. Moshield.com is where you can find more information on Andrew Galloway and his wife, Caroline, their company, former SMU punter, who was able to turn this into a massive business. And we have a code for you guys to get their best pricing of the season, and that is code PONY, of course, which makes a ton of sense for the ponies. And you want to have your Mustangs on in your backyard on your TV, and you want to be free from all the mosquitoes that are out there this time of year. And so they're offering their best pricing for those of you who go on to Moshield.com, reach out to them, give them a call, and also that'll get you guys through football season in terms of making sure your backyard is a safe, fun place for you guys to entertain your family, your friends, and more. And look, we had them on as our presenting sponsor for the After Stangs Show last week, had a great response. Again, partnering with a former SMU football player and his family. They're here in Dallas. They can help you out if you're in the DFW area, whether it's all natural or pretty much all natural treatment to your backyard. They can help you make sure your backyard is taken care of from all the mosquito problems that might hit the North Texas area or wherever you are in Texas. There's no contracts, there's no cancellation fees because they stand behind the service they provide, and they'll only spray and charge during mosquito season. So give them a call, 214-775-0622, or go to Moshield.com. And promo code is PONYUP for the best pricing throughout the remainder of the season, which is through November. So with that out of the way, Dean, SMU comes out. They get the bad taste out of their mouth from the Nevada game. Look, Rhett Lashley talked about it in the post game. He said a lot was made of the poor play for three quarters, and probably rightfully so. But they finished really strong. And after a quick 3-and-out by SMU, a little bit of a shaky start defensively before settling in, this thing was over before it even started.
Yeah, like Coach Lashley said, a lot was made of those first three quarters. And I think SMU fans and college football fans needed to see SMU go out and dominate the way they did tonight. And like you said, that first drive, 3-and-out. But after that, SMU dominated for the remainder of the game. And they proved to a lot of people that maybe they are capable of playing at a high ACC level.
Yeah, and this is more of the team that we probably thought we were maybe even going to see last week. Just the hype coming in around the team, just all the different weapons and depth and all of that offseason talk and all of the camp thoughts that we thought we knew. And we won't know everything about this team until they go through that game against BYU, then TCU, and then FSU and Louisville. And we'll look up the second week of October and really know where this team could be going into the back half of that season. And I thought for me, Rashard Smith was one of the big takeaways. Once again, putting up a high number in terms of yardage. He had a great game, and he's starting to show why they were so confident in him in the preseason.
Yeah, he's a danger whenever he gets the ball, whether it be a kick return, which we saw in week 0 against Nevada, where he took one past midfield, or tonight with numerous runs of double digits and picking up first downs, and then, of course, his touchdowns as well. He's just a real threat for SMU and will help take some of that load off of whoever is at quarterback.
We saw two quarterbacks tonight.
We did.
Once again, Preston Stone, Kevin Jennings doing the rotation. And then we saw Keldrick Luster get in the game as well. And he threw a nice block. That actually makes, I think, 2 of 3 quarterbacks. I didn't see Kevin throw one, but Preston threw one for Bouchard. Keldrick threw a big one at some point for Derek McFall or whoever was carrying the ball in that play. But all 3 of those quarterbacks get time. But what were your takeaways from Preston and Kevin's performances?
I think both of them played well. There's no doubt about that. I think Kevin looked the most comfortable. We saw him moving around in the pocket, scrambling, rushing for over 50 yards tonight. He was 10 for 14, just shy of 150 yards passing. So he was doing it all. Preston had some great throws downfield. And then Keldrick Luster really used his legs when we saw him in the second half.
Yeah, we see why people kind of joke-ish about Keldrick moving to running back at some point. I mean, he's got a cannon. He's got the ability to throw it. It was good to see him get in there and throw the ball, or run the ball a little bit and get his feet wet. They really, I think I said to you, or maybe it was somebody else that said, as the fourth quarter hit, I said, Rhett Lash is going to sit on this. It's going to be a lot of run, milk the clock, and we'll be out of here in about 20 minutes of this fourth quarter. It went by fast.
Yeah, and SMU had proved their point really almost by halftime, but certainly by the end of the third quarter. And so I think it was just a case of let's get some freshmen some reps and let's wind this game down and just finish it out strong, which Coach Lashley did make a point about in the press conference. He wants SMU to be a team that finishes strong in every game, and they did tonight, but they were dominant all throughout.
Preston Stone threw an absolute dime to Jordan Hudson to kick off the scoring. I thought that was important. I said to somebody pregame, I was actually talking to James Crochet on the sideline, and we were talking about the team a little bit, and we were talking about the receivers, and I said, they've got to get Jordan Hudson involved early. He's somebody that feeds off of that. Now, in a game like this where they're not going to play everybody the entirety of the game, a little different, but he caught that touchdown pass. I thought that was a nice little confidence boost for him after just one catch for 10 yards last week.
Yeah, and he had a good performance. He caught a touchdown pass against Louisiana Tech to open the scoring in week 1 last year, so scores the first touchdown at home this year. So he's always seemed to get off to a strong start, but we need to find that consistency for him. As we've talked about, someone needs to step up and be that alpha wide receiver, and he's looking more and more like that player.
You made a point in the press box. Corey Roberson, week 1 interceptions at home. If you're taking that on the gambling lines, I hope somebody's hitting on that.
Starting to see some trends in these week 1 games, that's for sure.
And let's go back to week 1 talk around college football. I mean, so many teams tonight, and I didn't see the final on Abilene Christian. Texas Tech, did they pull it?
Abilene Christian went for 2 to win the game, but got stuffed. They fell, I think it was 52-51 or something like that. Crazy game there. But to your point, there were so many games. Oregon was only leading by 3 against Idaho at one point in the fourth quarter. Michigan was only leading by 6 against Fresno State. And then you go back to last night, NC State was in a really tight game, a ranked ACC team at home. They were barely able to pull away there in the fourth quarter. And then, of course, many of you saw Virginia Tech fall on the road to, at one point, was a future SMU opponent, Vanderbilt. So
your hometown?
Yeah, my hometown, which
took that game from us.
Yeah, they did.
And look, for people who are watching on our YouTube channel, appreciate you guys jumping in the comments and sharing your thoughts with us. We've also got our comments from the SMU fans on theponyexpress.com, which you can subscribe and save $30 annually on a subscription. When you grab an annual subscription, you can sign up at ontheponyexpress.com for our breakdowns, all the press conferences, all those things. In terms of injuries tonight, couple to run down. Andrew Chamblee did get back, or I guess make his debut for SMU tonight. That was good. Brett Lashley said they probably could have held him one more week, but he was healthy enough and they wanted to get him in action.
Yeah, and in the press conference midweek, he had said that Chamblee was day-to-day, week-to-week, so we weren't really sure if we were going to get to see him today, but I think it was great for him to get at least a few reps, knowing that this schedule really ramps up here in the next few weeks.
And we are hanging out at Shug's Bagels in Mockingbird Plaza. Get their after-hours menu fired up for your post-game meal and enjoy that until about 2 a.m. So SMU-owned business there that we are broadcasting live from. You see the folks behind us. Injuries, Jalen Knighton was held out of precaution. Rhett Lashley said he could have gone. They held him out. Moochie Dixon was also dressed out on the sidelines in just his jersey and street clothes. So that'll be another one we'll have to follow up with. And then Zane Miners did get absolutely drilled on his run of the night, but was able to pop back up and somehow ran off. I thought that was one that we're going to be unfortunately talking about for a while.
Yeah, he looked in a lot of pain, but was able to pretty much jog off the field. But yes, Jalen Knighton was held out from the game. Coach Lashley said in the press conference they could have played him if they needed to, but the offense ran for 369 yards, so it didn't seem like they needed him tonight. And then Moochie Dixon, again, maybe could have played him, but this offense played very well without those two players, and it will be great when they come back, but it was nice to see this offense just hit the ground running.
SMU finishes 595 total yards to 157 total yards, so a lot more of what Rhett Lashley wants to see, a lot more of what Scott Simons wants to see. 3 sacks for the Mustangs, 10 tackles for loss. I felt like the new offensive line combination with Ja'Kai Clark at center, and then a rotation of different guys at the guard positions, and then kicking out Justin Osborne to right tackle. Obviously, it's Houston Christian, but it settled that group down a little bit more. I felt like they were more in sync, and again, 0 sacks allowed, so that's always a good thing.
Yeah, the offensive line was improved. We knew when Ja'Kai Clark came to SMU a year ago that he had experience at center, and so it makes sense that he makes the transition over in week 1 here. And Justin Osborne had experience at right guard or right tackle, rather, when Hiron White went down last year. And so it's always better to put players in positions they've been in before, and I think we saw that in week 1.
Defensively, I asked Rhett Lashley about Elijah Roberts because, 1 tackle through 2 games. He basically kind of shrugged it off. And I kind of thought an answer like that was coming, but I felt like it was worth asking. What has he seen? He sees a guy that, at least maybe in game 1, they were scheming to go away against.
Yeah, and on the other side of that defensive line, you saw Isaiah Smith have a great game. 3 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, and a sack. And so that's what you really get to see, the strength of this defensive line, where it's not just one-dimensional. You've seen teams now try and take away Elijah Roberts. But at the end of the Nevada game, and really throughout this Houston Christian game, you saw numerous players on this defensive line step up.
Yeah, we mentioned Corey Roberson. Tank Booker had a touchdown. He had a recovery off of Jafari Harvey's strip sack, and that was another big play in the game. Big Tank Booker made it in the end zone. I was thinking at the 5, I was like, no way. And he found a way.
He threw down a pretty vicious stiff arm there to fall over the goal line. So, yeah, pretty great example of his athleticism there.
Yeah, Isaiah Smith, friend of the program. We know the people in the DMV are listening to us this week as well as just about every week. So good to see Isaiah. 2 sacks or 2 tackles for loss and a sack on the night. So he had a good night. I felt like the secondary was a little bit more settled down. Again, a little bit of a mismatch. Of course, Calvin Wiggins, former SMU wide receiver, still playing college football. He was in this one tonight. And actually, he had no catches. He did have 1 broken up by Deuce Harmon. I felt like the secondary was more improved. Special teams was kind of iffy tonight for the most part. So a couple kick returns that were okay, along with 28, and then a shank punt. So some things still to be cleaned up there. But the return game, on the other hand, was another strong point for SMU, especially in the punt return game with Roger Daniels and even Jackson Lavender at the end there.
And the return game and special teams as a whole will, of course, have big parts to play in these next few games coming up. But I think it's nice now that SMU has had these 2 games. They've had even more experience and more film to go back and look and try and figure things out. Whereas, again, most teams are just playing their first game here this week. And so you're seeing a lot of teams struggle, whereas SMU is starting to pick up the pace and play better on all phases of the game.
All right, couple questions here, and then we'll close out with our players of the game. Romello seemed to struggle catching the ball. Have you seen that in practice, or is that something new? I think Romello Brinson, wide receiver, is somebody who's a supreme athlete, very, very good. And I think he has generally improved his ability to catch the football. I thought that screen pass that could have gone for a bigger game if he didn't step out against Nevada. Prime example is kind of you're in the heat of battle. There's guys flying around you on a screen, and he's able to catch it and quickly get upfield. I don't know if he's the most natural pass catcher, but he's got big hands. He's athletic. I don't think it's something that is really a concern. Keyshawn, on the other hand, has been the one out of the wide receivers that have kind of been, plagued by drops at times.
Yeah, and I can tell you from being at practice, NFL scouts are asking about Romello Brinson. They were before the season. They continue to be. So there's the potential there for sure. I think it's hard when you we don't have this alpha wide receiver, and so you're seeing players just get few targets each game. So it's hard to get into that rhythm and build the confidence when you're getting few opportunities each game.
And then lastly, biggest thing you learned tonight?
I think I learned that SMU can start fast. It was something we saw throughout the year last year, but against Nevada, they kicked the ball off, and it was a slow start, as everybody knows. But the offense, again, besides that 3-and-out to start the game, they were running the ball exceptionally well, which opened up the passing game. And so I think if they can continue to find that right balance, I think they will be a very successful offense.
I learned tonight that SMU's game presentation is much improved. The whole coordination between the audio-visual, the the band, the DJ, the student section, getting them involved with the big flag over them to kick off the stampede. I thought it was all just A1. I spent some time in the Weber End Zone complex early on in the game, and the standing room only. If people don't know about it right now, the secret's out by now, and the food selection and just everything is just great atmosphere, good crowd too. Home side was pretty full. Students were there throughout the entire first half, pretty much.
Yeah.
And then, it was Houston Christian. Outside of that, it was, kind of sparse in the upper decks, but it's going to be quite the venue here in the next few weeks with BYU, TCU, Florida State.
And I agree with you. The SMU students definitely showed out tonight, which is exciting because, if they're going to show out tonight, they're going to be coming to these bigger games down the line and staying throughout the games. And so it's exciting. It's a dominant win tonight. And I think these fans will remember tonight's performance and have confidence and want to show up to these games in the next few weeks.
Who are your offensive and defensive players of the game?
I think for offense, I would go with Kevin Jennings. And this does not mean that Preston Stone had a bad game. Like I said, he played well. But Kevin showed great poise, knowing when to run the football, going through his progressions, and was great running the football and passing the football. So I'd go with him. What about you?
Oh, I guess I got to go for Shark Smith if you're going to do that. I know we had talked about it, but 9 carries, 108 yards, 2 touchdowns, long run of 47. He's just probably the most consistent player on offense at this point, just with his production, all different facets of the game. RJ Maryland had a massive game last year in the second half. Rashard was key for SMU throughout the game, so I'd go with him as my offensive player of the game. Who do you got on defense?
I mentioned him earlier, Isaiah Smith. We talked about the attention being put towards Elijah Roberts for Houston Christian, and it allowed Isaiah Smith to shine. We've talked about how great a fall camp and offseason he's had, and for him to get the statistics in game to prove that he really has improved was great to see.
I'm going to go with Ahmad Moses. Had an interception at kind of a critical early point of the game. Had 3 tackles, one of them solo. He's just so steady back there. I thought Jonathan McGill had some big hits. He had 4 tackles. Kobe Wilson and Alex Kilgore led the team in tackles with 6 apiece. Kobe had a half tackle for loss. Alex Kilgore had a tackle for loss. But I think Ahmad Moses' interception was a big play in the game.
It was. I believe it was the first of the turnovers. And so it got that defense off on the right foot. And like you said, there were numerous players that could have been picked tonight. It was a really well-rounded performance from all parts of the defense. But it was nice to see them, aside from the 1 touchdown, played a complete game of football.
Well, SMU does play BYU 6 p.m. Central on ESPN2 inside Ford Stadium Friday night. So everybody, Friday, block off the calendars for the Boulevard. What do you see as the biggest thing the team has to accomplish this week in practice in preparation for that?
Well, I think get healthy for the few injuries they have. They got to be 100%. Love to see Chamblee play more in that game. And I just think it's address the, not issues in the trenches, but continue to see improvement there, because the defensive line was not up to par against Nevada, nor was the offensive line. They looked better tonight. Can they build off tonight's performance and play well against the BYU Cougars?
Yeah, I'm very interested to see how the trenches go as well, because there's not a ton you can do as far as much more changing around.
Right.
I mean, they did that on the offensive line, which I thought was something that we talked about, when the depth chart was close to getting out or whatever, and people were saying, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? I said, they're working on it. Look, they're very high on Justin Osborne, but the thing that they've got to do is have the best 5 out there. And the way to do that is to rotate Logan Parr, Ben Sparks, Savion Byrd, all those guys at guard that they have, and get those guys work and keep them fresh. Then have Ja'Kai Clark, somebody you really trust at center. Graham Uter got his first college action tonight. Derek McFall got his first college action tonight. He's not an offensive lineman, but deserves some praise there. But, the trenches on the offensive line, these BYU Cougars are always older, physical. They always bring it. They didn't have the best season last year. They're probably trying to get that taste out of their mouth. But, I think the trenches are going to tell the tale on Friday. And if SMU can take that next step and hit on the potential that they have to be great, I think we'll see SMU have a chance to move to 3-0.
Yeah, and BYU took care of business tonight against Southern Illinois, so they moved to 1-0 on the year. So they'll be coming in with some confidence too, and we know what happened in the bowl game a couple years ago. So there's some history there. But to your point, I think if SMU just does what they should do in place of their potential, they've got a great chance of winning on Friday night.
For those who are wondering about the quarterbacks, I would guess that we still see some rotation between the two, don't you think?
I don't think either one of them has separated themselves to be the true out-and-out starter, and I think that's fine. It worked tonight. Both quarterbacks came in, were passing the ball well, no turnovers from either one of them, which was good to see. But yes, I think we saw Nevada Preston get the first 2 drives and then Kevin get the second 2, and they kind of go from there. Saw that again tonight. Is that a theme? Maybe we'll see that in week 2 against BYU. We'll see, but we'll see both quarterbacks against BYU for sure.
Well, in week 2, SMU will look to go 3-0 on the year. So kind of weird saying that, but yeah, that is where we're at after that week 0 game and now a week 1 game. So SMU moves to 2-0 on the year. And look, you can have much more coverage at ontheponyexpress.com. We are live at Shook's Bagels. Appreciate Mosquito Shield, moshield.com. Use code PonyUp or mention On the Pony Express to get their best pricing of the season, which runs through November. So hit them up today, moshield.com for more information. And for Dean Rowski, I'm Billy Embody. Thanks for listening to this edition of the After Stangs Show, live at Shook's Bagels. We will catch you guys next week, Friday night, BYU game, and we'll be there to have your full coverage of it. So thanks for listening to this edition. We'll catch you guys next week.
Thanks for listening to the On the Pony Express podcast with Billy Embody. Follow us on your socials on X at SMU_on3 and on Instagram at On3SMU. And keep it locked to ontheponyexpress.com for more coverage.